Hello, leader. From Jodie Foster to Whoopi Goldberg to Kim Kardashian, celebrities and non-celebrities alike are speaking out and then being scolded for it when they share their points of view about young people in the workplace. Small business owners have their point of view too. So do I. And that's what we're talking about today. We're going to look at commentary and real-life examples ripped from the headlines and social media. And heads up, if you are a young professional, you might take offense to some of what you'll hear today. But if you're into self-development and understanding other people's point of view, then you should be open to it. After all, isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing in the workplace, regardless of our age? Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast. Thanks for tuning in and following your curiosity to learn and honor your personal conviction to be the best leader you can be. On this podcast, you won't hear a bunch of theories presented by academics who haven't been in a workplace in years or ever, and you'll not hear from executives who are flush with capital, people, and pool tables in their cafeteria telling you how to build team culture. Nope. Why? Because you are a small business owner and you've built something great out of nothing. And through it all, you've learned that you need a team, but not just any team. I'm your host, Shelli Warren. I've led winning teams in retail, innovative technical teams at a Fortune 50 corporation for decades, not-for-profit boards, and in online business, and helped many remote teams win at work. And I can tell you that no one escapes team troubles, including me. These days, I'm the CEO of Stacking Your Team, where I teach and develop tools for small business owners so they can attract, retain, and develop their teams so the founder can step out of her day-to-day operation. I'm so happy you're here because we all know that the people side of running your business is often the most difficult, and the team that got you here may not be the team that gets you there. So come on, let's jump in to today's episode. I'm sure you've seen it in the news or on your social media feeds, but here's the headline. Boomers are fed up with Gen Z and Gen Y in the workplace. So to begin, let's do a quick definition of generations. Now, I'm 62 years old, and I've had a job of some sort since I was 12. Everything from walking kids to school, to teaching gymnastics camps, to working at a diner, to retail, to my corporate career, and now in online business. The only time I didn't work was my 4-month maternity leave for Danielle, which back then was all you got. Of course, now in Canada, it's a standard 12-month maternity leave, and you can extend it to 18 months. So, as a New Year's Day baby in 1962, that makes me a boomer. And yes, it's my champagne birthday year. Born in 62 and now 62. So next comes Gen X, people who are now in their mid-40s and late 50s. Then we have Gen Y, normally referred to as millennials, who are now in their late 20s up into their early 40s. Then we have Gen Z, who are now teenagers to their mid-20s. And of course, we have our newest generation known as Alpha, who were born in 2010 up until now. So what generation are you from? I know sometimes it feels like you may have one foot in one generation with the other in a different one, depending on your birth date and your personality. I get that. Sometimes I feel like a boomer, but there are many times I feel more like a Gen X. I guess it's because I'm still very much involved in the world of work, when most people my age have retired or they're getting ready to retire. And I feel like I'm just getting started, so I don't fit the norm. But for today, choose your most likely generation. And if you are a Gen Y or Gen Z, take a listen to how your different viewpoint on work and life is disrupting small businesses everywhere. And it's not all bad, but it's sure worth looking into. Here are some recent events that have not gone unnoticed. Jodie Foster called Gen Z annoying in the workplace, causing a stir on social media. The 61-year-old actor shared her thoughts on Generation Z in an interview with The Guardian, which was published on January 6th of this year, where she said, "They're really annoying, especially in the workplace." She goes on to say, "Or in emails, I'll tell them, 'This is all grammatically incorrect. Did you not check your spelling?' And they're like, 'Why would I do that? Isn't that kind of limiting?'" In a recent visit to the Jimmy Kimmel Show, he asked her about it and she confirmed it. She also confirmed her Gen Z sons, who are now in their mid-20s, were not thrilled about her comments in that article either. And she also said that this generation learned that they can say no, and we didn't have that kind of freedom. She went on to tell a few stories about how she did not feel comfortable to speak up. You see, she started her career in film and TV at the age of 3. Yeah, 3. Can you imagine? And back then, there certainly was not the level of support that young actors have today. So that's a fact. As someone who is her age, I get it. We were not encouraged to say no to anything. We were encouraged to go along, to get along, and certainly not to create any kind of disruption or scene at work. Jodie Foster's comments have received a barrage of negative backlash on social media. One employer and supporter of Gen Z expressed online, "My Gen Z employees are at work on time and deliver on their tasks and objectives. Maybe Jodie's just a bad boss and can't communicate what someone's role, responsibilities, and objectives are for the workday. Bad management always blames everyone but themselves for issues in the workplace." Now, there could be some truth to this. Last week's episode 304, I titled, "Stop with the BS Excuses and Start Leading Your Team," calls this out directly. Because too often business owners think everything is intuitive for their team members. And for some it is. But for most people, it's not. Which is why I'm such a stickler with my clients for providing 5-hour work plans and start, stop, continue feedback regularly. It puts everything in black and white, essentially putting an end to those gray zones that can be so cloudy because expectations are all open to individual interpretation. And what research shows is true. Gen Z has been unfairly judged and given a bad rap for being too tech-obsessed, too sensitive, and lacking in social skills. And there is some truth to that. But did you know that Gen Z is the most diverse generation in U.S. history? Yeah, those 20-somethings are super comfortable with any kind of device or software or digital system, and they have friends from all over the world. Blended families are more than normal, but what's become even more frequent is that their lifestyle is built on their family of choice. No one is biologically connected, but they're deeply connected through shared emotional experiences. They form their own family structure where they feel they belong and they are better for it. Here are a few more interesting facts. Last year, Whoopi Goldberg, who is, by the way, 68, you might know her from a few of her popular movies, the original Color Purple and Ghost, and of course, more recently, the daily TV show, The View. She came under scrutiny for blaming the financial issues faced by younger generations on their poor work ethic and laziness. She said, "I'm sorry, but if you want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house." Well, I don't care how old you are. There's truth in that, especially in light of the housing shortage in the U.S. and Canada. And how about those price tags being slapped on those scarce properties? No doubt, this is impacting the more popular strategy of young professionals to opt out of owning a property and instead lean into the rental property game as they work remotely from around the world. All good until the landlord informs you that your short-term lease is up soon and they will not be renewing it with you because they need it for their own young professional to move into. And can we ever forget that time when Kim Kardashian drew criticism for similar comments she made to Variety in 2022? when she responded to a question about advice for young women in the business sector. And I'll tone it down here for this podcast, but she said, "I have the best advice for women in business," she told the publication and the camera. "Get your bleeping butt up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days." So let's get right to the point. Every single generation has complained about coworkers who don't cut it and who are incredibly annoying because they're being overpaid for what they contribute. This is super rampant in corporate because underperformers can typically hide or go unnoticed for longer periods of time. And age isn't even a factor. I can remember when I was in my early 20s complaining about the old people at my work who, when I think back on it now, were likely in their 40s. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so old. But I found them incredibly annoying for a million reasons that I thought I was justified in listing off with my friends over cocktails on a Friday night. The peer-to-peer complaining is still happening, and it looks like this. Peers are picking up their slack, fixing their mistakes, and taking over projects that are not meeting standards and generally trying to coach them towards success. But it all hinges on the person's willingness to be coachable and then take action on what they just heard. I remember often having these conversations a lot back in my corporate career about some of my own team members. And believe me, it was definitely a mix of ages. But the common denominator was lack of drive and lack of commitment. It went something like this. "He's great when he's here. If I could just get him here more often." Or, "She's actually really good when I check in with her 3 or 4 times a day." Or, "He can be brilliant when he's on, but he's off more than he's on." But in the world of small business, we simply don't have the luxury of long on-ramps for training and qualifying new team members. And we don't have HR departments and training departments to oversee attendance issues, attitude problems, or performance outages. Nope. It's all up to the business owner and their leadership team if they've designed that level of help and ownership into their team structure. Now, hold up. I can hear some of you getting miffed at me for brushing past the current mental health crisis that we're seeing around the globe with our young people. I'm not. I'm simply pointing out the current state in the workplace. And yes, the mental health crisis is definitely impacting the workplace. The Financial Post shared that Canadian insurance companies paid $650 million for mental health claims in 2022. That's almost double what they covered a few short years earlier in 2019. And it's a fact, smaller teams can also mean employees are shouldering much larger workloads with less slack built in for vacation or if someone calls in sick. Small businesses are aware that they need to support struggling team members, but often don't have the funds or the structure of a formal mental health strategy in place. So workplace mental health, it is a big deal. And I've been there twice. Once in my corporate career, where I dropped down to less than 100 pounds, and again in the online space, where I ballooned up to over 160 pounds, complete with high blood pressure and raging type 2 diabetes. I put myself dead last, thinking that if I just did one more thing really well, hit one more revenue milestone, or created one more asset for the business, I'd be rewarded and feel great about that. But what I learned the hard way is that it doesn't work like that. Here's another recent development. You must have heard about Elmo doing his own mental health check-in with his fans. In a recent People magazine article, it captured the gist of what he did, so I'll recap it for you here. One of Sesame Street's friendliest faces did an online check-in, and it didn't quite go as expected as he thought. Elmo tweeted on X, formerly Twitter, "Elmo is just checking in. How's everyone doing?" The replies and quote tweets blew up with responses ranging from grim to humorous as everyone realized that the end of January had felt like a tough time at large. At this time, the tweet is coming in well over 200 million views. "Elmo, life is hard," one person replied. Another added, "Not great, Elmo, not great." Soon, more Sesame Street characters began chiming in, sharing their support for the many overwhelmed people who responded to Elmo's original tweet. Cookie Monster wrote, "Me here to talk it out whenever you want. Me will also supply cookies. #emotional well-being." The online moment, which went from chaotic to heartwarming, sent people a bigger message about mental health. Even CNN invited Elmo and Samantha Moulton, representing the brand Sesame Street, to come on and talk about it. We definitely seem to be in a mental health crisis, and it's spilling over into our homes, classrooms, and workplaces. So what should a small business owner do when she feels that her young professionals are not equipped well for the world of work? Now, I want to preface this with the fact that I personally have worked with many young professionals that are stellar. I've had many paid interns in my corporate role. I've been surrounded with incredible young people who had a big impact on my not-for-profit board roles. And I'm currently coaching a few young professionals in my local city who are all under 35, and each of them are on their way to a very fulfilling career. I'm also working with someone here at Stacking Your Team who's in her late 20s, and she continues to impress the heck out of me. Inside the Leadership Lab Team Leader Program, we have people from various backgrounds and various industries, but the common denominator is that their leader enrolled them into that program to show each of them how committed she is to their success in their leadership role that they have within her small business. Most of them are taking advantage of the trainings and the live calls and wouldn't dream of missing anything. Others are disinterested and disengaged, and that's a sheer sign to their CEO that investing in them was a great idea, but if they have to be reminded, nudged, or pushed into career development opportunities, it's not worth their time or the money. Now, from where I sit, the dilemma of what young professionals get wrong about knowing their value in the workplace, especially in small business, I see it from two different sides. One side is the CEO. She's frustrated that not all of her young professionals are going to be long-term fits. It's a big expense. She's hired them, onboarded them, trained them, and now it's looking like not all of them will be around for too long. Either they'll quit or she'll have to terminate them. There are a number of reasons why. Here are a few. Attendance issues, pushback on doing tasks that they would prefer not to have to do, excessive errors or tasks half completed, needing someone else to take it over the finish line, often a peer, sometimes the CEO herself, and the generalization that everything needs to be pointed out to them, meaning it's not obvious for them to see, notice, recognize, or connect the dots and see what needs to be done to stay on track, or stay ahead, or stay open for business. In other cases, the person has so much potential, but lacks the confidence to make decisions and move ahead without excessive reassurance and handholding. That's a big problem in small business because there's just not the luxury of lavish timelines to make things happen or care for clients and customers. On the other side, I hear from young professionals themselves that not all of them are happy at work. There are a number of reasons why. Here are a few. First of all, they feel that they're not being promoted quickly enough, and there's less of a sense of loyalty to any one employer, meaning they'll move from one job to another to get the pay level, title, and perks that they want. They're very comfortable to get a fresh start at a different company, over and over again, if that's what it takes, to make a significant pay increase within a shorter period of time. This is very different from their Gen X coworkers, those people who are in their 40s, who were conditioned to work up and into their promotions and additional responsibility, collecting experiences and skills in a business that they feel that they've had a hand in building. They like being part of the history, leaving their stamp on the business and influencing how the business or the team has grown. This causes friction between them and their younger coworkers because they don't understand the lack of loyalty to the company who hired them and the peer group that they belong to. Another point to consider, is that our younger professionals are coming out of post-secondary school with a load of debt that the rest of us have not typically been saddled with. And that makes it difficult for them to think about anything else but making enough money to pay it off and live at the same time. So in comparison, older coworkers started out in the world of work wanting to get their foot in the door, get settled, get a solid reputation, and get saving for a home, a nice vehicle, and start a family, and of course be able to afford an annual vacation or two. They took the time to learn how to get promoted and positioned themselves well to be considered for each new move, either up or out. Whereas younger people are wanting to move up the compensation ladder by crisscrossing rungs, but don't always understand the process and can be frustrated with the fact that they have to abide by a process at all. Now, there's a big part of me that understands this. When I first got hired in corporate and learned the process for promotions, I set out to bust through the standard timelines. But guess what? I did everything, met the criteria of skills and qualifications, had alignment from my leaders that I should really be given that bigger raise, even though I'd earned it far sooner than hundreds of other people ahead of me. But nope, I was made to wait. I got over it and set about to crush every standard timeline there was along the career path that I chose. Call it ambition, call it boldness, either way, I was able to move quickly along the career path because, albeit not as fast as I'd hoped at some levels, but at other levels, I was able to get there years ahead of my colleagues and set a new precedent. Why? Because I was able to back it up. I wasn't promoted or given raises because I kept asking for them or because I felt it was my time and I should be given them. No, I got what I wanted because I delivered consistently and wasn't afraid to take on new responsibilities, learn how to do it while I was doing it, and be known for being highly reliable. I also made lots of mistakes and owned every one of them. So is it so much different in the world of work today? Is it so much different if you work in small business? Come on back next week where we will continue to dive into what's happening with our young people at work. We'll also look at another recent event ripped straight from the headlines, and I'll share 5 things that you can do to help your younger team members better understand their value at work. We're going to talk about pushback, boundaries, refusals to do tasks, and the frequent requests for raises and what you can do about it. And if you'd like to create a culture of learning for your team, why not consider enrolling them into the Leadership Lab Team Leader Program? They'll get very relevant on-demand training and a resource library designed to help them excel as highly valued team members. They'll also get access to our private community for real-time support and quarterly live training calls and a monthly drop-in Q&A call with me, all at a very affordable price. You know, and I know that the people side of running your business is often the hardest. So why not get some quality help and move into this year better prepared for more growth instead of dealing with team turnover, disappointments, and overpaying for mediocre performance? I'm here to help. You can get all the details and even book a call with me over at the website at stackingyourteam.com. Leadership can be exciting, challenging, and lonely at times. So don't go it alone. Let me help you create the team and the leadership structure that you've been craving. So until next time, remember, if you have a dream, you need a team. So let's get stacking yours today.